welcome to God's 5 Minutes with Pastor Ed Wilson. Reach him at GodsFiveMinutes@gmail.com. Now, here's Ed Wilson with God's 5 Minutes.
Hello, friends. The 14th chapter of Genesis tells us the story of how invading warlords looted the city where Lot lived and took him and his possessions into captivity. When Abram heard of the disaster, he gathered his most able servants into a rescue party, and so began the only military adventure of his life. He skillfully attacked the marauders, although his little force was seriously outnumbered, and rescued his wayward nephew. After these things, the word of the Lord came unto Abram in a vision, saying, Fear not, Abram, I am thy shield and thy exceeding great reward. At the time, Abram was probably about 85 years old. He had been 14 years in Canaan, far beyond the reach of support from his own kindred. He had attacked and defeated a formidable league of northern kings. He had every reason to dread a counterattack at any time from their overwhelmingly superior forces. So this message, like everything God sends us, fit closely to his immediate pressing need. But it is also for all time and all believers. Just as in Abram's case, there is plenty of reason for any of us to fear just in the simple facts of life. There are so many certain evils and so many more possible evils that for anyone not to be concerned and sometimes alarmed, that person would need to be simply unable to understand the magnitude of the threat. And yet the command of the Lord is, fear not. So let's look at what that means. The first cause of fear for any living soul should be because of where we stand with regard to God's law. People may mutilate and kill our bodies, but that destruction has an end. Violating God's law can have eternal results. Following that, in no particular order, there is a justifiable fear of dread diseases, financial failure, loss of treasured relationships, even fear of rejection and isolation. It is possible to become so frightened of life one lives continually with shades drawn behind locked and shuttered doors. There's only one realistic way of conquering fears of any sort, and that is to show them to be unfounded. It is a waste of breath for even God to say, don't be afraid, unless he plans to do something to deal with the causes of our natural fears. It is childish to try to get rid of fears by tightly shutting our eyes to them or refusing to acknowledge formidable facts head on. Well, friends, my glad message to you is to have God reveal himself in the fearful circumstance is the true antidote to all fear. So just as you might expect, fear not is the watchword of the Bible, occurring frequently on its pages from this cheering message to Abram all the way to the Apostle John on his lonely exile on the Isle of Patmos. The basis God offers us to help us dealing with emotions of anxiety and dread, which incidentally are the stuff and substance of depression, is that he is our shield. Thus his protection assures us not that we will have no scary moments, nor even that no unpleasant things will happen to us, but that he has complete control of our lives, so that men and circumstances are his instruments, and his will only is powerful. Chedorlaomer and all the allied kings are nothing, a noise, as the prophet said of a later conqueror. All the bitterness and terror is taken out of evil. If any fiery dart strikes a shield, all its poison is wiped off as it is deflected. As to the fear of violating God's law and so making us vulnerable to inward evils, our shield, the very shield Jesus prayed for, would not fail Peter when his courage let him down, assures us of absolute redemption. Faith toward either inward or outward threat is a shield because it takes hold of God's strength. Abram refused to benefit from the spoil of the enemy he had conquered. In consequence, God promised him, as he does us all in recompense for sacrifices in the path of duty, the Lord is able to give thee much more than these. This promise opens out to the broad truth that God himself is the true reward of a devout life. 'Tis better to have the blesser than the blessing. Have you talked to him today?
You have been listening to God's 5 Minutes with Pastor Ed Wilson. Reach him by email at GodsFiveMinutes@gmail.com. Tune in next time to hear more encouraging thoughts from God's Word on God's 5 Minutes with Pastor Ed Wilson.